The Case of Helen Arius, Spain. Welcome as the world outside settles into a quiet rhythm, and we turn our attention to the hushed corners of Spain, where even the most vibrant landscapes can sometimes conceal the deepest of shadows. Tonight, we journey to the heart of a tragedy that unfolded with a chilling precision, a story of love, betrayal, and a life extinguished far too soon. The Case of Helen Arius. In the tranquil ancient lands of Odedo, Spain, nestled amidst rolling hills and the whisper of olive groves, life often proceeds with an unhurried grace. Yet even in such serene settings, the fabric of existence can be torn by unseen forces, leaving a wound that refuses to heal. Helen Arius, at the tender age of 29, was a woman who embodied the spirit of her homeland, vibrant, resilient, and full of the quiet promise that each new day brings. She was known among her friends and family for her bright smile, her unwavering loyalty, and a spirit that, even when tested, always sought the light. Her life, a tapestry woven with the threads of routine and hope, was shattered into countless fragments on a fateful day, April 7th, 2021. That morning, as the Spanish sun began its climb, casting long, lazy shadows across the awakening landscape, Helen set out. Her destination was a rural area, a place that held a bitter familiarity, the vicinity where the family of her former partner, Jose Angel Bodilla, resided. There was a lingering connection, a thread of unresolved history that pulled her towards this place, perhaps for closure, perhaps for a final confrontation that she could not have known would seal her fate. The air, usually alive with the hum of insects and the distant bleating of sheep, offered no warning, no subtle tremor to foreshadow the chilling silence that would soon descend. Helen, perhaps with a knot of trepidation in her stomach, or perhaps with a determined resolve, drove along the familiar roads, passing fields blooming with spring and ancient stone walls, each turn bringing her closer to the fateful encounter that would define the end of her earthly journey. Hours stretched into an agonizing eternity. The initial absence was marked by a growing unease, a gnawing worry that began to spread amongst those who knew and loved Helen. When her car was discovered, abandoned on a quiet, dusty track, the sense of dread solidified into a heavy, cold knot. The vehicle sat silently, in inert testament to a journey abruptly halted. All of Helen's personal belongings were still inside: her purse, her phone, a jacket casually draped over the passenger seat. This detail, seemingly innocuous, spoke volumes. It suggested no struggle for her possessions, no hasty flight. It indicated that Helen had left her car willingly, or perhaps had been taken from it, unprepared for the dark turn her day would take. The car itself became a silent, bewildered witness, holding the last traces of Helen's living presence, its stillness a stark contrast to the frantic activity that would soon engulf the area. For 4 agonizing days, the world held its breath. The search for Helen became a desperate race against time, a relentless quest that mobilized local law enforcement, emergency services, and a heartbroken community. Teams combed through the rugged terrain, calling her name into the echoing valleys, their voices swallowed by the vastness of the Spanish countryside. Every ditch, every thicket, every abandoned building was meticulously searched, each fruitless hour adding to the crushing weight of despair. Families and friends held vigils, their prayers whispered into the night, clinging to the fragile hope that Helen would be found alive, their collective anxiety a tangible weight in the small, close-knit towns. The media, initially offering cautious reports, soon amplified the community's anguish, spreading Helen's image across screens, a silent plea for information. Then, the fourth day dawned, bringing with it not the hoped-for reunion, but the grim confirmation of the community's darkest fears. Helen's body was discovered in a remote ravine, a place of steep, unforgiving slopes, as if deliberately chosen for its inaccessibility and its capacity to guard dark secrets. The discovery was not just a confirmation of death, but a stark revelation of immense suffering. The initial examination of her remains revealed immediate, undeniable signs of profound violence, evidence of strangulation, a final brutal act that silenced her voice forever, and blunt force trauma, speaking of a struggle, a desperate fight for survival against an assailant whose strength overwhelmed her. The serene landscape that had cradled her final moments now bore witness to a profound injustice, its natural beauty forever tainted by the horror it had silently absorbed. The discovery of Helen's body ignited the investigation with a fierce, renewed urgency. The missing person case transformed into a full-blown murder inquiry, sending a ripple of fear and outrage through Odedo and beyond. The meticulous work of forensic teams began, turning the ravine into a silent laboratory, painstakingly collecting every shred of evidence, every whisper the earth might yield about Helen's final moments. The details of her last known movements, her relationships, and her recent interactions became the crucial threads that detectives began to pull, knowing that somewhere within them lay the truth of what had transpired. Every rock, every twig, every disturbed patch of soil in that desolate ravine was scrutinized, each holding a potential clue to the brutal events that had transpired. From the outset, the focus of the seasoned investigators narrowed with a chilling precision onto Zoja Angel-Bogya, Helen's former partner. The complexities of past relationships often harbor lingering resentments, unresolved conflicts, and emotions that, left unaddressed, can fester into something deeply toxic. The police knew this truth well. José's name surfaced early, a familiar figure in Helen's life. Alongside José, his sister Andrea Bogya and Andrea's former partner Raoul quickly became persons of interest. The web of their interconnected lives, once seemingly mundane, now appeared to weave a sinister pattern around Helen's demise. The initial questioning of José revealed an unsettling composure, a calculated detachment that immediately raised suspicion. His answers were often evasive, riddled with inconsistencies that did not escape the notice of the trained eyes observing him, betraying a lack of genuine concern that starkly contrasted with the tragedy at hand. The breakthrough, a moment that pierced the veil of secrecy, came with Andrea Bovedia's confession. Under interrogation, the weight of complicity became too heavy for her to bear, and she crumbled. Andrea admitted to her role in the grim aftermath, to helping cover up the body of Helen Arius, to the unspeakable act of concealing a brutal truth. Her testimony was a chilling narrative that directly implicated her own brother, José Angel Bovedia, as the sole perpetrator of the murder. She described the harrowing details of the concealment, the desperate attempts to erase the crime, to bury it not just in the earth, but from the very annals of justice. Her words, though agonizing, provided the crucial missing pieces of the puzzle, laying bare the grim sequence of events and leading investigators closer to the horrifying truth. Her voice, trembling but resolute, offered a window into the dark heart of the crime. With Andrea's confession, the investigative efforts intensified, moving with a renewed sense of purpose. Forensic teams meticulously scoured the Bodia family residence, a place that should have offered sanctuary, but instead yielded damning evidence. They found traces that directly linked the home to the crime scene: fibers, soil samples, and most crucially, irrefutable evidence of Helen's blood. The tiny silent droplets of crimson though attempts had been made to cleanse them, still clung stubbornly to surfaces, a permanent record of the violence that had transpired. This physical evidence corroborated Andrea's account with undeniable scientific proof, painting a grim picture of domestic violence erupting within the very walls of a home. The application of luminol, a silent spectral glow, further unveiled the hidden extent of the blood, a chilling testament to the desperate, futile efforts to clean the scene. The reconstruction of events, meticulously pieced together from forensic findings, testimonies, and circumstantial evidence, painted a grim picture. It suggested that Jose, driven by motives that likely simmered beneath the surface of their fractured relationship, perhaps a volatile mix of financial entanglements, bitter resentment, and emotional possessiveness, had confronted Helen. This confrontation, fueled by a dangerous cocktail of unresolved issues, tragically escalated into a violent attack. The ultimate act of strangulation silenced Helen's life, and the subsequent blunt force trauma inflicted upon her body further underscored the brutality of the assault. Following the murder, Jose, presumably in a state of panic or calculated desperation, enlisted the assistance of his sister Andrea and her former partner Raul to dispose of Helen's body, believing that by casting her into the deep forgotten ravines, he could make her disappear without a trace, thus burying his heinous crime forever. The chilling precision of the disposal spoke of a mind disturbingly capable of cold calculation, even in the wake of immense violence. All three individuals, Jose Angel Bodia, Andrea Bodia, and Raul, were subsequently charged in connection with Helen Arias's murder. The legal proceedings commenced, bringing the full weight of Spanish justice to bear upon a case that had profoundly shaken the nation. Hosea, initially maintaining a steadfast denial of any involvement in Helen's death, eventually shifted his stance, offering a partial admission of guilt. His narrative, however, was riddled with inconsistencies, attempts to mitigate his culpability, and a reluctance to fully disclose the true horrors of that day. He painted a picture of accidental escalation, a struggle gone wrong, a desperate attempt to deflect the full weight of responsibility from his shoulders. The first trial was a grueling process, exposing the raw details of the crime to the public gaze. The evidence presented by the prosecution was substantial, building a compelling case against Jose as the primary perpetrator and against Andrea and Raul as his willing accomplices in the macabre act of concealment. Expert witnesses, from forensic pathologists detailing the injuries to digital forensics experts, tracing the chilling online searches for disposal methods, meticulously built the narrative of Jose's culpability. The emotional testimony of Helen's loved ones, though heart-wrenching, solidified the human cost of the crime in the minds of the jury. The court, after careful deliberation, delivered its verdict. Jose Angel Bodia was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the unlawful killing of Helen Arius. His sister, Andrea Bodia, received an 8-year sentence for complicity in the crime, acknowledging her active role in the cover-up. Raul, Andrea's former partner, was sentenced to 6 years for aiding and abetting, recognizing his assistance in the disposal of the body. For a time, it seemed that justice, though hard-won, had finally been served for Helen Arius. The community sighed with a heavy sense of relief, believing that the scales of justice had balanced, bringing a measure of closure to a wound that had festered for months. However, the path to justice is often winding, fraught with unforeseen twists and turns. Jose Angel Bodia's defense team, seizing upon procedural opportunities, swiftly filed an appeal. The legal battle resumed, dragging the grieving community back into the painful spotlight of the courtroom. In the second trial, a new layer of complexity emerged. Some testimonies that had been crucial in the first trial were either retracted or altered, introducing new elements of doubt. Andrea, under immense pressure, recanted parts of her initial confession, citing coercion and confusion. Raoul's account also became less definitive. Claims of insufficient evidence began to surface, muddying the previously clear waters of the prosecution's case. The once solid edifice of the state's argument seemed to tremble under the weight of re-examined details and shifted narratives, leaving the public on edge, anxiously awaiting the outcome. Then, in a shocking turn that sent ripples of disbelief and outrage across Spain, José Angel Bodia was acquitted in 2023. The verdict, delivered with a chilling finality, left the public stunned, bewildered, and furious. For Helen's family and for the community that had mourned her, this acquittal was a devastating blow, a profound injustice that reopened old wounds and left a bitter taste. How could the man accused of such a heinous crime, the man whose sister had confessed to aiding him, walk free? The ruling left an agonizing void, a sense of unfinished business in the pursuit of justice for Helen. The legal principle of in dubio pro reo, when in doubt, for the accused, a cornerstone of justice meant to protect against wrongful conviction, in this instance felt like a cruel irony to a grieving nation. The key questions surrounding José's motive, believed by many to be a complex blend of financial desperation, the remnants of emotional possessiveness from their failed relationship, and perhaps a twisted desire for control, remained agonizingly unanswered in the wake of the acquittal. The legal system, in its pursuit of absolute certainty beyond a reasonable doubt, had found that the evidence as presented in the second trial did not meet the threshold for conviction for José. But for the grieving family and the collective consciousness of Spain, the shadows of doubt persisted, casting a long, cold pall over the case of Helen Arius. Her story became a haunting reminder of the complexities of legal justice versus the profound human need for moral accountability. The repercussions of the acquittal extended beyond the immediate emotional turmoil, seeping into the public consciousness as a potent symbol of the enduring challenges faced in cases of domestic violence. Helen's story, once a personal tragedy confined to her intimate circle, now resonated across the nation, becoming a touchstone for discussions on judicial reform, victim protection, and the societal responsibility to combat gender-based violence. Women's rights organizations and anti-violence activists seized upon the case, using its painful details to amplify their calls for stronger legal frameworks, more comprehensive support systems for victims, and enhanced training for law enforcement and judicial personnel in handling such sensitive and complex matters. They argued that the acquittal, regardless of its legal merits, sent a chilling message of potential impunity, undermining the trust that victims might place in the justice system. The collective outrage transformed into a powerful, organized movement, demanding that Helen's tragedy serve as a catalyst for meaningful, systemic change rather than a mere footnote in legal history. The legal journey itself became a subject of intense scrutiny, dissected by legal scholars, journalists, and the public alike. The Spanish judicial system, rooted in civil law traditions, operates with meticulous procedures and appeals processes designed to ensure thoroughness and protect against error. However, the Helen Arius case highlighted how these very mechanisms, intended for fairness, could become agonizingly protracted for victims' families, turning the pursuit of justice into an arduous, emotionally draining odyssey. The retraction of Andrea Bodia's testimony, a critical element in the initial conviction, proved to be a pivotal factor. Legal experts debated the immense pressures witnesses face, the potential for intimidation from powerful defense teams, and the inherent challenges of maintaining consistent testimony over time. especially when familial bonds complicate the pursuit of truth, forcing individuals to choose between loyalty and justice. The nuances of forensic evidence, particularly the interpretation of trace evidence and blood spatter patterns in a dismembered body case, were meticulously dissected in public forums, demonstrating the inherent difficulties in reconstructing events with absolute certainty without a direct confession or eyewitness account. The gap between scientific findings and legal thresholds became starkly evident. Beyond the courtroom, the psychological aftermath for all involved was immense and enduring. For Helen's family, the initial shock of her disappearance and death was profoundly compounded by the emotional roller coaster of the trials. The initial conviction brought a fragile, fleeting sense of relief, a glimpse of retribution, only to be shattered by the appeal and the final shocking acquittal of José. This kind of legal outcome, where a perceived perpetrator walks free despite widespread suspicion, often leads to a phenomenon known as ambiguous loss, where grief is complicated by a pervasive lack of definitive closure or satisfying justice. Helen's parents and her siblings carried this burden, not just the raw, visceral pain of losing their beloved Helen, but the lingering, agonizing question of absolute accountability. They continued to advocate tirelessly, transforming their profound sorrow into a powerful force for change, ensuring Helen's name would not be forgotten. They spoke openly, their voices trembling with grief but firm with resolve, of the Helen they knew, the ambitious young woman who dreamed of a family and a fulfilling life, now reduced to cold headlines and agonizing legal debates. This deeply personal narrative, shared openly with the world, humanized the often cold and impersonal legal proceedings, allowing the public to connect deeply with the raw, visceral pain of their irreplaceable loss. For José Angel Bodia, the acquittal granted him legal freedom, a release from the confines of the Spanish justice system. However, the court of public opinion, a less formal but often equally powerful tribunal, had already rendered its own damning verdict. He re-entered a society that largely viewed him with profound suspicion, condemnation, and an undeniable aura of dark notoriety. The shadow of Helen Arius's death and the widespread, persistent belief in his culpability would likely follow him indefinitely, haunting his every step, casting a long, cold pall over his remaining life. The psychological toll of the intense investigation, the harrowing trials, and the relentless public scrutiny, even with an acquittal, would undoubtedly leave an indelible mark on his psyche, regardless of his true guilt or innocence in the eyes of the law. His continued silence on the specific, minute details of the events leading to Helen's death, especially after his partial admission in the first trial, continued to fuel intense public speculation and deep-seated distrust, leaving countless questions suspended in the air. The case also brought into sharp focus the often overlooked and profound vulnerabilities of women in new or unstable relationships, especially those with a history of controlling or violent behavior. Helen's courageous journey to a new country for work, her hopes for establishing a family, and her eventual intimate relationship with José provided a tragic illustration of how personal aspirations can tragically intersect with unforeseen dangers when trust is misplaced. Her story underscored the critical importance of early intervention, recognizing the insidious warning signs of escalating abusive behavior and providing accessible, safe pathways for victims to escape dangerous situations before they turn fatal. Activists emphasized the urgent need for comprehensive education, starting from schools and extending into communities, about what constitutes healthy relationships, the vital importance of consent, and effective conflict resolution strategies, all aiming to break pervasive cycles of violence across generations. The silence surrounding domestic violence, the reluctance to intervene, and the societal normalization of controlling behaviors were all challenged in the wake of Helen's story. In the quiet corners of Odedo, where the olive groves continue to sway in the gentle breeze, and the ancient stones guard their secrets, the memory of Helen Arius remains vibrant and enduring, not just as a victim whose life was brutally cut short, but as a powerful symbol of the tireless fight for justice and the ongoing quest for a safer, more equitable society. Her name is whispered in hushed tones during community gatherings, in solemn discussions among women's support groups, and within the august, often silent halls of legal institutions where her case is studied. The case, with its dramatic twists, its controversial conclusion, and its profound human cost, became a permanent part of the collective memory, a haunting, cautionary tale woven into the very fabric of the region. It served as a stark reminder that the pursuit of truth is often complex and arduous, fraught with legal intricacies and human frailties, and that justice, while sought through legal channels, often finds its truest resonance in the hearts and minds of those who refuse to forget, who continue to demand accountability. The indelible mark Helen left on the conscience of a nation far outlived her brief years. The tireless efforts of forensic scientists who meticulously pieced together the fragments of evidence from the desolate ravine and the seemingly ordinary apartment continued to be a subject of intense academic study and professional reflection. Their dedication, working with the smallest, most elusive traces from microscopic fibers and distinct soil samples to the silent, irrefutable language of blood, underscored the powerful, often heartbreaking narrative that physical evidence can tell, even when human testimony falters. The innovative technology of luminol, which illuminated the hidden bloodstains like spectral constellations in the darkness, transformed the apartment from an ordinary dwelling into a crime scene etched with an invisible history of profound violence, a silent scream frozen in time. These scientific advancements, though ultimately unable to sway the final verdict in the second trial due to legal technicalities, nevertheless solidified the initial understanding of the crime's brutal nature and its chilling location, providing a scientific foundation for the public's conviction. The Helen Arius case served as a poignant and undeniable example of the critical need for continuous evolution within the justice system itself. It prompted deeper, more urgent discussions among legislators about establishing and fortifying robust witness protection programs, particularly in cases involving sensitive family dynamics, organized crime, or the very real potential for intimidation that can compromise crucial testimonies. The complexities of appellate courts and the rigorous standards by which evidence is reevaluated were also critically examined, leading to calls for clearer guidelines and more transparent processes to prevent such dramatic reversals of justice. While the legal decision of acquittal stood, the immense public conversation it sparked represented a more profound form of societal justice, a collective refusal to let Helen's death be in vain, to allow her memory to fade into obscurity. The sheer volume of public discourse, the renewed national focus on victim advocacy, and the unwavering commitment of various organizations to actively prevent future tragedies became, in a very real and lasting sense, a living memorial to Helen's life, a testament to her enduring impact on the conscience of a nation. Her name became synonymous with the urgent need for change. As the quiet stillness of the night deepens around you, and the gentle rhythm of your breath becomes a soothing companion, allow the echoes of Helen Arius's complex and poignant story to settle. Consider the profound courage of those who seek a new life, brave souls venturing into the unknown, the silent, often invisible battles fought within troubled relationships, battles that can escalate into unimaginable horror, and the often unpredictable paths that justice can take, sometimes leaving more questions than answers. Her story, a tapestry woven with threads of hope and devastating tragedy, serves as a powerful reminder of the inherent preciousness of every human life, the intricate complexities of human connections, and the unyielding, relentless quest for truth and accountability, even when formal justice seems elusive. May the contemplation of her journey and the ripples it sent through her world bring you a sense of quiet reflection, a deeper understanding of the nuanced human experience, and a calm, peaceful heart as you gently drift towards a restorative and dream-filled rest, knowing that even in the face of profound sorrow, the human spirit's capacity for memory and for the pursuit of justice endures. The Case of Anja Lama, Mahit, Nepal. Welcome, as the quiet of the world settles around you, inviting reflection on tales that resonate with the profound complexities of human connection and the unyielding strength of the spirit. Tonight, we journey to the heart of Nepal, a land of soaring peaks and deep ancient valleys, where life is woven with traditions as intricate as the patterns on a prayer flag. Here, we delve into a story not of crime in its most brutal sense, but of the silent battles fought against societal strictures, of forbidden love, and the extraordinary resilience of a young woman named Anja Lama Mahit. The human heart, in its boundless capacity for affection, often transcends the rigid boundaries imposed by society, tradition, and expectation. Love, a force as undeniable as the monsoon rains that sweep across the landscape, can bloom in the most unexpected of places, drawing together souls from disparate worlds, bridging chasms of status and custom. Yet, in societies deeply rooted in hierarchical structures, where lineage and wealth often dictate destiny, such unions can become a fierce battleground, a poignant testament to the enduring power of personal choice against the formidable, crushing weight of inherited custom and generations of societal norms. This is the intricate, challenging stage upon which Anja Lama's journey unfolded, a narrative rich with quiet courage, a profound yearning for acceptance, and an unyielding spirit that sought to rewrite her own destiny against the odds. Our story begins in a modest, sun-drenched village, nestled precariously yet beautifully in the lower Himalayas, where the rhythm of life was dictated by the ancient cycles of the land and the predictable turning of the seasons. Here, every dawn brought the promise of simple, honest toil in the terraced fields, and every dusk offered the comforting embrace of familial warmth gathered around crackling hearths. Anja Lama, a young woman of humble origins, her hands accustomed to the simple, honest toil of village life, tending to burgeoning fields of rice and millet, patiently caring for the family's modest livestock, drawing cool, life-giving water from the communal well, with a quiet strength possessed a spirit that shone with an inner light, a quiet determination that beautifully belied her seemingly gentle and unassuming demeanor. Her family, while rich in love, cultural heritage, and deeply held traditional values, lacked the material wealth and elevated social standing that often dictated one's path in the intricate, often unforgiving, tapestry of Nepalese society. Despite this, Anja carried herself with an inherent dignity that commanded respect, her intelligent eyes reflecting the quiet wisdom of generations of resilient women who had faced life's manifold challenges with unwavering strength and grace. Her world was physically small, confined by the familiar contours of her village and the surrounding hills, yet it was profoundly filled with the breathtaking beauty of her natural surroundings, the vibrant colors of the landscape, and the close-knit, supportive bonds of her community, where every face was familiar, every life story known, and every hardship shared. Then, into this world, one defined by simplicity and ancient custom, stepped Mahit. Prahl hailed from a different stratum of society altogether, a world entirely removed from Anja's modest existence, a realm of privilege and power. His family was not just wealthy, they were revered, their ancient name carrying the immense weight of generations of respect, far-reaching influence, and inherited privilege, their lineage tracing back to figures of historical power and undeniable renown within the region. Their sprawling estate, a majestic testament to their status, nestled amidst meticulously manicured gardens, shimmering ponds teeming with koi, and ornate structures adorned with intricate, hand-carved details, stood as a physical embodiment of their formidable social standing, a stark and imposing contrast to Anja's humble upbringing. The initial encounters between Anja and Prahl might have seemed innocuous, chance meetings in the bustling village marketplace, their paths crossing during rare visits to the vibrant town for supplies or festive celebrations. Yet, beneath the surface of polite exchange, a spark ignited, a connection forged by mutual admiration, a shared kindness that transcended their backgrounds, and a burgeoning affection that dared to defiantly challenge the unspoken, deeply ingrained rules of their stratified world. It was a connection that transcended the rigid boundaries of caste and wealth, defying the very fabric of their society, threatening to unravel centuries of carefully maintained order. Their love blossomed in secret, a clandestine garden hidden from the disapproving gaze of their respective families, nourished by stolen moments, hushed conversations, and whispered promises exchanged under the benevolent cover of dusk. Every stolen glance, every hushed conversation exchanged in quiet corners away from prying ears, every fleeting, almost imperceptible touch was charged with the thrilling, undeniable danger of discovery and the profound sweetness of shared defiance against a world that adamantly sought to keep them apart. Anja knew, deep in her heart, that such a union was almost an impossibility in the rigid, unforgiving social landscape of Nepal, where intercaste marriages were often met with severe condemnation and even ostracization. Prahl's family, steeped in ancient tradition, fiercely protective of their legacy, and acutely aware of their public image, would view her as an utterly undesirable match, an unpardonable stain on their esteemed lineage, a grave threat to their carefully constructed social standing and reputation that they had meticulously built over generations. Her own family, while loving and supportive, would also understand the immense, almost unbridgeable chasm between their worlds, perhaps fearing the severe repercussions, the devastating societal ostracization, and the potential hardships that such a misalliance would inevitably bring upon their cherished daughter. The weight of centuries of tradition pressed down on them, a silent, formidable barrier to their happiness, threatening to crush their burgeoning love before it could even fully take root and flourish. Despite the seemingly insurmountable odds and the pervasive societal pressures, their love deepened with each passing day, growing roots so strong and intertwined that the thought of separation became an unbearable agony, a future too bleak to contemplate. In 2016, with a mixture of youthful idealism, desperate hope, and a fierce, unwavering commitment to each other that defied all logic, Anja and Prahl made a bold, life-altering decision that would forever alter the course of their lives. They married. This was not a grand, celebrated union blessed by families and communities, as custom dictated, but a quiet, almost defiant act, a clandestine ceremony performed away from prying eyes, shrouded in secrecy, facilitated by Prahl's older brother, Ujwal, Ujwal perhaps possessing a more open mind than his rigid relatives, a deeper sense of empathy, or a more profound understanding of his brother's heart, saw beyond the rigid societal classifications and offered a lifeline to their forbidden love, a quiet act of kindness that would have profound repercussions. His support, though clandestine and risky, was a crucial act of rebellion against his own family's stringent expectations and a powerful testament to his unwavering loyalty to his brother and his belief in love. The ceremony, simple and heartfelt, cemented their bond in the eyes of their love and commitment, but also cast them adrift into an uncertain, perilous future, far from the approval, financial support, and social acceptance they desperately needed to truly thrive. Their courageous act, while sealing their bond, also sealed their immediate fate as outsiders. The immediate aftermath of their marriage was fraught with immense financial struggles, a stark and brutal awakening to the harsh realities of their defiant choice. Anja and Prahl found themselves effectively ostracized, living precariously on the periphery of both their families' worlds, cut off from the established networks of support that had once sustained them. Prahl, having grown up exclusively within the confines of his family's immense wealth and privilege, found his upbringing ill-suited to the harsh realities of making a living independently in a society that valued lineage, established connections, and inherited status above all else. His attempts to find suitable work were met with polite rejections, his lack of practical experience a glaring hindrance. Anja, while accustomed to hard work and resilience from her village life, found her existing skills and meager resources severely strained by the overwhelming demands of supporting a household in a new, more urban environment, far removed from the self-sufficiency, communal support, and bartering systems of village life. They faced daunting challenges daily, their love tested by the relentless pressures of poverty, social isolation, and the biting coldness of societal disapproval that seemed to follow them like a shadow. Each day was a testament to their unwavering commitment to each other, a shared exhausting struggle to build even a rudimentary life together against a backdrop of seemingly insurmountable odds and pervasive economic hardship. The once grand dream of their union seemed to be crumbling under the brutal weight of reality, threatening to extinguish the flame of their love and break their spirits. Their small apartment, cramped and often cold, became a silent witness to their struggles and their steadfast, quiet determination. Then a lifeline, thin but unexpectedly strong and remarkably timely, appeared from within the very family that had, until now, cast them out. Prahl's family, perhaps softened by the relentless passage of time and the realization that their son was truly committed, or more likely, fearing the erosion of their own public image and esteemed reputation should their once privileged son continue to struggle in such a visible and public manner, finally relented. They extended a grudging invitation, a reluctant olive branch, allowing Anja and Prahl to move into their sprawling, opulent estate, a place of immense wealth and rigid tradition. It was a conditional acceptance, a reluctant concession driven more by practicality and a desire to maintain appearances than by genuine warmth or affection. From the very moment Anja, with a mixture of trepidation and cautious hope, stepped foot inside those grand, imposing gates, she was immediately confronted by an atmosphere thick with unspoken disapproval, a pervasive coldness that seemed to seep from the ornate walls and expensive furnishings. Her in-laws, custodians of their family's esteemed reputation and ancient traditions, viewed her with thinly veiled disdain, their eyes communicating a silent, cutting judgment that pierced her heart with every encounter. To them, she was a constant, living reminder of Prahl's defiance, a symbol of a misalliance that brought shame to their ancient name and threatened the perceived purity of their lineage. Anja, with her modest clothing, simple adornments, and humble demeanor, felt the crushing weight of their contempt in every cold glance, every clipped word, every subtle, silent dismissal that sought to strip her of her inherent dignity. The estate, though undeniably luxurious and outwardly grand, with its many rooms and sprawling grounds, quickly became a gilded cage for Anja, a place of constant emotional trial and quiet suffering. She faced relentless hostility from her in-laws, a pervasive coldness that seemed to seep into every corner of her existence, making even the air feel heavy with unspoken animosity and veiled criticism. Dinners were tense affairs, her opinions dismissed with a casual wave of a hand, her presence merely tolerated rather than genuinely welcomed, as if she were an unwelcome guest. She diligently performed her duties, striving to be an impeccable wife to Prael and an irreproachable daughter-in-law to his parents, hoping that her tireless efforts, her unwavering respect, and her quiet adherence to their demanding customs and traditions would eventually wear down their deeply ingrained prejudice and soften their hardened hearts. She cooked traditional meals with meticulous care. She cleaned the vast estate with tireless dedication. She cared for the household with a quiet determination that bordered on obsession, pouring her heart and soul into every thankless task, seeking only a flicker of acceptance. Yet, despite her unwavering efforts to integrate, to prove her worth beyond her birth, their disdain remained a constant, chilling presence, an invisible barrier that kept her perpetually an outsider, always aware of her tenuous position. Each day was a grueling test of her emotional resolve, a quiet internal battle against an invisible wall of disapproval that threatened to break her spirit and steal her peace. But Anja was not merely a victim of circumstance, a passive recipient of her in-laws' contempt. Beneath her quiet, outwardly unassuming exterior lay a formidable spirit, an ambitious heart that refused to be confined by the narrow, predetermined expectations of others, expectations rooted in centuries of rigid social hierarchy. She harbored a dream, a vision of true independence, of tangible contribution, and of personal fulfillment to open her own beauty salon. In modern Nepal, rapidly evolving and embracing new opportunities, beauty salons were swiftly emerging as vibrant symbols of modern aspirations and burgeoning female entrepreneurship, providing a vital service in a society where personal appearance held profound cultural significance and beauty rituals were deeply ingrained in everyday life. Anja, with her keen eye for detail and her natural affinity for artistry, saw an opportunity not just for much-needed financial independence, but for profound personal fulfillment, a chance to carve out her own unique space in a world that relentlessly sought to diminish her based on her origins. It was a quiet rebellion against her circumstances, a powerful statement of self-worth and capability that would redefine her place. It was Prahl's older brother, Ujwal, the same individual who had quietly facilitated their marriage years earlier with a surprising act of compassionate rebellion, who again stepped forward, becoming an unexpected and crucial ally in Anja's burgeoning dream. Perhaps observing Anja's quiet resilience, her unwavering work ethic, or recognizing her innate talent for aesthetics, her keen business sense, and her unwavering determination to make a success of herself, Ujwal saw potential where others in his family saw only an undesirable lineage. He made a bold decision, one that likely went against the wishes of his parents. He provided the crucial financial backing Anja needed, a significant sum that would allow her dream to take tangible shape, to move from a whispered hope to a concrete plan. This silent act of profound support from Ujjwal was a powerful beacon in the pervasive gloom of her in-laws' disdain, a quiet but undeniable affirmation that she was more than her humble origins, that her worth extended far beyond the arbitrary lines of social status and inherited wealth. With this crucial, timely, and transformative support, Anja poured her entire being into realizing her dream, working tirelessly, fueled by a singular purpose. She found a modest yet promising commercial space in the bustling city, meticulously designed the interior with a thoughtful blend of modern elegance and subtle traditional touches, sourced quality beauty products and state-of-the-art equipment, and trained diligently, honing her inherent creativity, attention to detail, and tireless dedication to her craft. The beauty salon, a vibrant, bustling testament to Anja's vision, unwavering hard work, and relentless perseverance, quickly blossomed into a thriving enterprise. Her innate skill as a beautician, her warm, empathetic demeanor with clients, and her unwavering dedication to providing exceptional service that went above and beyond expectations drew a steady, growing stream of eager patrons from all walks of life. Word of mouth, the most powerful and authentic form of advertisement in close-knit communities, spread rapidly through the city, not just about the unparalleled quality of her services, but about the gentle, respectful, and remarkably talented young woman who ran the establishment with such grace and professionalism. The salon became more than just a place for beauty treatments. It transformed into a hub of quiet empowerment, a sanctuary where women felt cared for, pampered, and truly beautiful, both inside and out, finding a sense of community. It wasn't long before the salon became not just consistently profitable, but remarkably successful, far exceeding initial financial expectations, and becoming a notable success story in the competitive local business landscape. The consistent, substantial flow of income into the family, generated by Anja's own hands and her sharp, intuitive business acumen, began to exert a subtle but profound and undeniable influence on the previously unyielding and deeply ingrained prejudiced attitudes of her in-laws, a slow but certain shift in their perception. The undeniable financial success of Anja's salon started to systematically dismantle the rigid edifice of prejudice her in-laws had so meticulously constructed over years of silent disapproval and overt disdain. Money, in many societies, speaks a language that transcends rigid social status, ancestral lineage, and inherited prejudice, and in this instance, it spoke loudly and clearly, cutting through generations of ingrained bias. They began to see Anja not as an embarrassment, a stain on their esteemed name, but as a valuable asset to the family, a woman of significant substance, undeniable capability, and burgeoning influence within the community. The pervasive coldness that had defined their interactions, the icy silence and dismissive glances that had once been her daily companions, slowly began to thaw, almost imperceptibly at first, like ice melting under a gentle spring sun after a long, harsh winter. Subtle but significant shifts in their behavior followed. A less dismissive tone when she spoke during family gatherings, a nod of grudging acknowledgement during discussions about household finances, perhaps even a hesitant, almost imperceptible smile offered in her direction, a small crack in their hardened exteriors. Eventually, their initial grudging acceptance, born out of necessity, transformed into a genuine, if still somewhat reserved, respect for her contributions. Anja, the humble village girl they had once openly scorned, had undeniably proven her worth, not just through her marriage to their son, but through her sheer talent, tireless hard work, and remarkable entrepreneurial spirit that benefited them all. The sprawling estate, once a place of silent judgment and emotional isolation, slowly but surely began to feel more like a true home, a place where she could finally breathe freely and truly belong, her presence no longer merely tolerated, but welcomed. Anja Lama Mahit had not only defied the rigid social norms of her time and culture to marry the man she loved, a monumental feat in itself, but had also, through her sheer will, innate talent, and unwavering perseverance, carved out a respected and undeniable place for herself within a powerful family that had initially rejected her with scorn and contempt. Her journey was a profound testament to the power of perseverance in the face of daunting adversity, the quiet strength of unshakable conviction, and the profound impact of self-reliance, determination, and ambition. As her business continued to thrive, expanding its services and client base to meet growing demand, and her position within her new family solidified into one of genuine respect and even a growing affection, Anja began to feel a familiar, comforting tug at her heart, a deep-seated longing to reconnect with her own family, the humble origins she had never truly forgotten or forsaken despite her new life of relative luxury. She yearned to share her triumphs, to extend her newfound prosperity, and to lovingly bridge the emotional and social gap that her marriage had inadvertently created between her two worlds. Her first thought, filled with warmth and boundless generosity, was of her younger brother, a bright, ambitious young man still living in their distant village, whose immense potential she always believed in, but who lacked the opportunities she now had access to. She envisioned him moving to the bustling city, pursuing higher education at a prestigious university, securing a bright future, and building a life of opportunities that had once seemed impossible for someone of their modest background. This act of bringing her brother closer, of investing in his future, was not just about family obligation. It was about honoring her roots, demonstrating that her success had not distanced her from where she came, but rather empowered her to uplift and provide for those she loved most, truly embodying the spirit of self-made success. The echoes of her past now intertwined seamlessly with the vibrant promise of a shared future, a harmonious blend of cherished tradition and exciting progress, all forged by the strength of her indomitable spirit and enduring love. Anja's success wasn't merely a personal triumph. It became a quiet beacon for other women in her extended family and community. Her salon, bustling with clients and alive with the hum of conversation, became an informal meeting place where women traditionally confined to domestic spheres could witness firsthand the tangible benefits of economic independence. Younger female relatives of the Mahit family, once aloof, now sought Anja's advice, subtly expressing admiration for her entrepreneurial spirit. She often spoke to them, not in grand speeches, but through casual conversations about the importance of education, skill development, and self-reliance, subtly planting seeds of ambition where none had been encouraged before. Her story quietly challenged deeply entrenched patriarchal norms, demonstrating that a woman's value extended far beyond her ability to maintain a household or bear children. She showed that a woman could be both a respected family member and a successful professional, capable of contributing significantly to the family's prosperity through her own endeavors. This subtle but profound shift in perspective began to ripple through the Mahit household and beyond, slowly redefining the roles and expectations placed upon women. As Anja's brother Ravi transitioned from the quiet village to the bustling city for his university studies, the bond between them strengthened, now enriched by shared urban experiences and intellectual pursuits. Anja became his steadfast support, not only financially but emotionally, guiding him through the complexities of city life and academia. She ensured he had the best resources, tutelage, and a comfortable living environment, allowing him to focus entirely on his studies. Ravi, in turn, brought a renewed sense of purpose and connection to Anja's life, a living link to her cherished past. His presence in the city also provided a bridge to her parents and the wider village community, as he would often relay news, messages, and maintain the vital connections that Anja, immersed in her business, sometimes struggled to nurture as actively as she wished. This expanding family network, rooted in Anja's success, symbolized a quiet revolution, a breaking down of barriers between rural and urban, humble and privileged. However, even with success and acceptance, the complexities of Anja's position within the Mahit family occasionally resurfaced. While overt hostility had largely faded, there were still unspoken expectations, subtle reminders of her outsider status that occasionally manifested. For instance, in certain social gatherings with the most elite families, Anja might still feel a slight chill, a lingering sense that she was being evaluated through a different lens than her husband Pral or Ujjwal. She learned to navigate these nuanced social currents with grace and quiet strength, her confidence stemming from her own accomplishments rather than inherited status. Her relationship with Pral deepened through these shared challenges. He admired her resilience and fortitude, and their bond, forged in adversity, became an unyielding partnership built on mutual respect and love. Their story became a testament to the idea that love, when tenacious, can not only conquer societal divides, but also build something profoundly new and resilient. The legacy of Anja Lama Mahit in Nepal is still unfolding, but its contours are clear. She became a quiet icon of female entrepreneurship and social mobility. Her story whispered from one village to another, from one young woman to the next. Her salon, now a well-established and highly regarded institution, served as a tangible example of what dedication and vision could achieve. She began, subtly at first, to mentor other young women, offering advice, sharing business insights, and sometimes even providing small loans or connections to help them start their own ventures. Her influence was not loud or political, but deeply personal and impactful, changing lives one individual at a time. She embodied the spirit of progress without forsaking her roots, proving that tradition and modernity could coexist, enriching each other. Her life became a narrative of quiet triumph, a testament to the fact that identity is not solely defined by birthright, but by character, effort, and the courage to forge one's own path. The once forbidden love between Anja and Pral, viewed as scandalous, gradually transformed into a respected union, an example of how true connection can ultimately transcend the artificial boundaries of society. The Mahit family, once rigid in its adherence to archaic customs, slowly began to evolve, influenced by Anja's undeniable contributions and the broader societal changes she represented. Her story, though deeply personal, resonated with universal themes of aspiration, resilience, and the enduring power of human connection. It continues to inspire, a quiet whisper of hope carried on the Himalayan winds, reminding all who hear it that true worth is measured not by wealth or lineage, but by the strength of one's spirit and the depth of one's heart. As the quiet stillness of the night gently envelops you now, and the soft rhythmic sounds of the darkness begin their calming lullaby, allow the profound and moving story of Anja Lama Mahit to drift softly and contemplatively through your thoughts. Consider the immense and quiet courage it takes for an individual to pursue dreams against the weight of societal expectation, the inherent complexities and often hidden strengths within human relationships, and the unyielding, persistent pursuit of self-worth and acceptance in a world that often seeks to define us. May this powerful tale leave you with a sense of solemn awareness, a touch of quiet contemplation regarding the human condition, and a calm, peaceful heart as you gently drift into slumber, knowing with a quiet certainty that even within the deepest and most carefully concealed shadows of tradition, the unwavering light of individual spirit and the enduring power of love will ultimately and always prevail. The vanishing of the Black Dahlia copycat. Welcome as the shadows lengthen and the world outside prepares for the quiet mysteries of the night. Tonight, we step back in time, not to the well-trodden paths of infamous crimes that echo loudly through history, but to the forgotten corners where their chilling reverberations give rise to unseen horrors, born of a dark and twisted fascination. We journey to a time when the myth of a singular monster, popularized by sensational headlines, could infect the minds of others, giving rise to new, terrifying iterations of evil. Our focus tonight rests not on the original, chilling tableau of the Black Dahlia, a case synonymous with macabre notoriety, but on a less sensational, yet equally haunting, consequence of its brutal legacy, the vanishing that mirrored its darkness, in a place that believed itself utterly safe from such grand macabre dramas. The year is 1949. 2 years have passed since the grotesque discovery of Elizabeth Short in a sun-baked Los Angeles vacant lot sent shivers down the spine of an entire nation. The sensationalism surrounding the Black Dahlia murder, the shocking bisection of her body, the theatrical mutilation of her face, the elusive, almost phantom-like killer had seeped deep into the national consciousness, becoming a macabre touchstone, a dark whisper carried on every breeze, a grim tale exchanged in hushed tones. Yet, away from the glaring Klieg lights of Hollywood and the bustling, indifferent boulevards of L.A., in the deceptively tranquil heartland of America, the seed of that particular horror had quietly taken root. In the small, unassuming town of Havenwood, nestled amidst gently rolling farmlands and defined by its deeply ingrained community values, life moved at a slower, predictable pace, governed by the rhythm of the seasons and the comforting familiarity of routines. The daily gossip revolved around innocent church socials, the promise of the next harvest, and the simple concerns of rural existence, certainly not dismembered bodies or unspeakable acts of violence. But even here, in this seemingly idyllic bubble, the radio crackled with news from the big cities, and bold newspaper headlines occasionally blared tales of distant violence and urban depravity, subtly poisoning the well of innocence, introducing a chilling tremor of the world's darker currents. It was in this very serene setting that the first tremor of profound unease began to stir, a disquieting ripple that would soon turn into a torrent of suffocating fear, engulfing the unsuspecting community. Martha John Everett, a name that would soon become tragically synonymous with bewildering terror and an unsolved nightmare, was 24 years old. She was a woman of quiet grace, known throughout Havenwood for her gentle demeanor, her unassuming kindness, and her meticulous, unwavering care of her aging, often frail mother, Mrs. Eleanor Everett, with whom she lived in a modest, immaculately kept bungalow on the quiet, tree-lined outskirts of town. Martha worked diligently as a librarian at the Havenwood Public Library, a place of hushed whispers, comforting order, and the quiet reverence for stories, where her days were filled with the earthy scent of old paper, the gentle rustle of turning pages, and the satisfaction of helping patrons discover new worlds within books. She was a creature of steadfast habit, her life marked by a comforting, almost rhythmic predictability, the familiar morning walk to work, the precisely timed lunch break she spent reading in a quiet corner, the evening return home as dusk settled, often with a new, eagerly anticipated book tucked under her arm for her mother's evening reading, On a cool, crisp autumn evening in October 1949, as the leaves began their fiery descent and the air carried the scent of wood smoke, that comforting rhythm was brutally shattered. Martha Jean Everett simply vanished. Her mother, Mrs. Eleanor Everett, frail of health and deeply dependent on her daughter for both companionship and care, grew increasingly worried as the clock hands crept relentlessly past Martha's usual arrival time. The unease morphed into a gnawing fear. Eleanor called the library. Martha had left precisely at closing, as always. She called Martha's few close friends. No one had seen her since the afternoon, since she waved goodbye outside the library doors. The growing silence in the small familiar house was louder than any alarm bell, a hollow ache that resonated with burgeoning dread, a premonition of irreversible loss. By the deep quiet of midnight, a frantic, tearful Mrs. Everett had managed to rouse the local sheriff, a kind but somewhat overwhelmed man named Deputy Miller, whose biggest cases usually involved stray livestock, minor disputes, or petty theft, never anything so sinister. The initial search was hampered by the sheer perplexing lack of clues. Martha hadn't owned a car, a luxury few in Havenwood possessed. She always walked, her reliable routine a familiar sight to all. The short, well-trodden path from the library to her home was intimately known, bordered by familiar houses with glowing windows and sleepy gardens, now touched by the autumn chill. There was no sign of struggle on the path, no dropped purse, no lost scarf, no scuff marks in the soft earth that might indicate a violent confrontation. It was as if Martha Jean Everett had simply dissolved into the crisp autumn air, spirited away by an unseen force. The town, at first bewildered by her unexplained absence, then grew increasingly anxious as the hours stretched into an agonizing void. Whispers began to circulate, hushed theories exchanged over steaming coffee cups in the local diner, or in quiet corners of the general store. Had she run off? But that wasn't Martha. Everyone agreed. It was entirely out of character for the responsible, home-loving librarian. Had she been abducted? The thought was terrifying, almost unthinkable, utterly unprecedented in the peaceful history of Havenwood. 3 agonizing days later, the horrifying discovery was made, not by a formal search party, but by a young boy, oblivious to the growing dread, chasing a runaway baseball into an abandoned, overgrown apple orchard on the far secluded edge of town. There, amidst the gnarled, forgotten trees, their branches skeletal against the pale autumn sky, lay Martha Jean Everett. The scene was one of unspeakable brutality, a tableau of deliberate, calculated horror that ripped through the veneer of Havenwood's innocence, tearing it asunder forever. Her body had been meticulously arranged, almost posed with a chilling theatrical artistry that immediately brought to mind the gruesome newspaper photographs and sensationalized stories from 2 years prior. She was bisected, her body severed with a precision that hinted at a chilling surgical knowledge, or at least an unnervingly steady hand and an almost academic understanding of human anatomy. But the true terror, the most unforgettable detail, lay in the grotesque mutilation of her face, a macabre mirroring of Elizabeth Short's infamous Glasgow smile. Martha's lips had been precisely cut from the corners of her mouth towards her ears, leaving her face frozen in a horrific silent scream, a grotesque eternal parody of a smile that would forever haunt the nightmares of those who bore witness to the scene. The comparison to the Black Dahlia was immediate, visceral, and undeniable, sending a collective gasp of pure terror through the small, previously sheltered town. This wasn't merely a murder, it was an echo, a perverse homage, a deliberate and chilling replication of a crime that had gripped the nation. Deputy Miller, overwhelmed and profoundly horrified by a savagery he could not have imagined, immediately called in the state police, and soon thereafter seasoned federal agents from the big cities arrived, their grim faces reflecting their recognition of the chilling implications of such a meticulously replicated crime. Havenwood was no longer just a quiet farming town. It was now, inexplicably, a stage for a copycat killer, a place where the pervasive shadows of a distant, more famous horror had come to reside, bringing their unique brand of malevolence. The fear was palpable, a suffocating blanket that descended upon the community, chilling every resident to the bone. Every locked door felt insufficient, every rustle in the dry autumn leaves a potential threat, every creak of the floorboards a harbinger of unseen danger. Who among them, in this small familiar world, could commit such an unspeakable act, and why would they so deliberately mimic such a specific, notorious, and utterly gruesome crime? The investigation began with a frantic, desperate intensity. Detectives swarmed the apple orchard, a scene now cordoned off and transformed into a chilling outdoor laboratory, meticulously searching for every conceivable clue. The ground, however, yielded little. The scene was disturbingly clean, almost sterile, suggesting the killer had taken immense, almost obsessive care to leave no incriminating trace behind. There were no discernible footprints, no dropped instruments, no fibers that didn't belong to Martha, no sign of a struggle that would have disturbed the perfect grim tableau. The only disturbing detail, one that baffled even the most seasoned investigators, was the faint, lingering scent of formaldehyde, a chemical often used in preservation or embalming, hanging eerily in the cool autumn air. This detail, more than any other, suggested a killer not driven by uncontrolled rage or impulsive violence, but by a chilling, calculated design, a mind capable of methodical ritual. It pointed to someone professional, someone who understood forensics, someone who perhaps even enjoyed the grim ritual of their dark work, deriving a perverse satisfaction from their meticulous cruelty. Interviews began, conducted with a new, urgent intensity that Havenwood had never before known. Every resident was a potential witness, and terrifyingly, every resident was also a potential suspect. The small-town familiarity, once a source of comfort and trust, now became a pervasive source of paranoia and suspicion. Neighbors looked at neighbors with newfound wary glances, searching for hidden darkness in familiar eyes. Who had a history of unexplained violence? Who harbored strange, unsettling tendencies? Who was new to town, their past unscrutinized? The answers were few, vague and unsatisfactory, and the questions mounted, heavier and more terrifying, with each passing day. Martha Jean Everett, the quiet, unassuming librarian, had no known enemies, no hidden life that could explain such a brutal end. Her life was simple, almost unremarkable in its quiet goodness. This made her an even more terrifying victim, seemingly chosen at random, or perhaps precisely because of her unassuming nature, a perfect, pristine canvas for a killer's dark artistry, a blank slate upon which to paint a chilling homage. The profound lack of tangible leads intensified the psychological toll on the investigators, especially on Deputy Miller. Once a jovial, easygoing figure, he became gaunt and haunted, the gruesome, unforgettable images of Martha's bisected and mutilated body replaying endlessly in his mind, robbing him of sleep and peace. The federal agents, seasoned by years of big city crime and hardened by urban depravity, were unnerved by the almost ritualistic nature of the killing in such an unexpected, innocent location. They understood the psychology of copycat crimes, usually a desperate desire for recognition, a perverse admiration for the original criminal, or a twisted attempt to prove one's own superior, even more diabolical genius. But this killer, if they were indeed a copycat, had chosen a stage far from the spotlight, in a town where such horrors were utterly foreign, where notoriety was shunned. What was their motivation? Was it a direct challenge to law enforcement? A private, twisted fantasy, played out in secret? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered, casting a long, cold shadow over Havenwood that would persist for generations. The fear in Havenwood was no longer just about the individual tragedy of Martha Jean Everett. It was about the profound and terrifying unknown. It was about the chilling realization that the world's deepest darkness could penetrate even the most secluded corners, breaching the protective shield of perceived safety. Parents kept their children indoors. Doors were double-locked even in daylight, and the once friendly chatter on the streets gave way to hushed anxieties exchanged in whispers. The town had been irrevocably stripped of its innocence, exposed to a malevolence it could barely comprehend, a silent, unseen predator lurking within its familiar boundaries. The phantom of the Black Dahlia, once a distant figure of sensational headlines and morbid curiosity, had now become a terrifying, palpable reality in their own backyard, a silent predator moving unseen among them, striking from the shadows. The apple orchard, once a symbol of autumn bounty, youthful games, and nostalgic innocence, was now forever transformed into a place of unspeakable terror, a permanent, indelible scar on the landscape of Havenwood's collective memory, a silent testament to the horror it had witnessed. As weeks turned into months, the initial flurry of intensive investigative activity began to wane, gradually replaced by a grim, weary acceptance of the inexplicable. The federal agents, their resources stretched thin and with no immediate breakthroughs, eventually departed, taking their sophisticated techniques and their lingering unanswered questions with them, leaving Deputy Miller to grapple with a cold case far beyond his experience or the resources of his small department. The national media, finding no new sensational developments or quick arrests, turned its hungry gaze to other headlines, other unfolding tragedies, leaving Havenwood largely alone with its fear, its profound sorrow, and its tormenting unanswered questions. The case of Martha Jean Everett, the quiet librarian who became a macabre echo of a more famous horror, slowly faded from national headlines, but never ever from the collective memory of the townspeople who had lived through its chilling reality. The theories, however, continued to circulate in Havenwood, fueled by local gossip, persistent unease, and the human need to find explanations for the inexplicable. Some whispered about a stranger passing through, a transient soul carrying a dark secret, and a twisted admiration for infamous killers who had simply moved on to new hunting grounds. Others cast suspicious glances at their own neighbors, those seemingly ordinary faces they saw every day, wondering if someone they knew, someone who had always blended seamlessly into the community, harbored a hidden darkness, a monstrous capability masked by a friendly smile and a normal life. The lingering, unsettling scent of formaldehyde, a perplexing detail that continued to baffle Deputy Miller, led some to speculate about a local doctor, a butcher, or even a mortician, someone with intimate knowledge of anatomy and chemicals, a professional capable of such precise and gruesome work. But no solid leads ever emerged from these tortured speculations, only deepening the pervasive mystery, adding new layers of dread to the town's psyche. Martha's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Everett, never truly recovered from the profound loss and the horrifying nature of her daughter's death. Her quiet, comfortable life was utterly shattered, consumed by inconsolable grief and the agonizing absence of justice. She would often sit by the window, day after day, staring out at the familiar path her daughter had walked every single day, her eyes hollow with unanswered questions and unshed tears. The community tried to offer solace, offering casseroles and kind words. But how does one truly console a mother whose daughter was not just brutally murdered, but grotesquely desecrated by an unknown, almost phantom hand, a hand seemingly inspired by a distant publicized horror? The quiet dignity of Martha's unassuming life stood in stark, heartbreaking contrast to the horrific brutality of her death, a dichotomy that tormented the minds and souls of those who knew and loved her, a wound that would never fully heal. The apple orchard itself became a haunted place, shunned and avoided. Children were strictly forbidden to play there, and even adults hurried past its gnarled, shadowy trees, their branches twisted like skeletal fingers against the sky, unwilling to linger in a place that held such a grim, unforgettable memory. It stood as a silent, decaying monument to Havenwood's lost innocence, a constant chilling reminder that evil, once a distant, abstract concept discussed in newspaper articles, could indeed arrive on their very doorstep, uninvited, unseen, and utterly unpunished. The autumn winds, once rustling gently through the leaves with a comforting murmur, now seemed to carry a mournful sigh, a chilling whisper of the horror that had transpired beneath their boughs, a ghostly lament for Martha Jean Everett. The case of Martha John Everett remains unsolved to this day, a cold case gathering dust in the archives of state police and federal agencies, a haunting echo in the annals of true crime. It stands as a chilling testament to the insidious, pervasive nature of true crime's influence, how the sensational details of one horrifying act can provide a perverse blueprint for another, far from the original scene of the depravity. It is a profoundly tragic story of a quiet, unsuspecting town plunged into an unfathomable nightmare, grappling not only with the brutal murder of one of its own, but with the terrifying realization that the darkness of human depravity knows no geographical bounds, no social limits, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones who walk among us, unseen, undetected, their motivations obscured, inspired by the very headlines that seek to expose them, forever eluding the grasp of justice. As the quiet stillness of the night deepens around you, and the gentle rhythm of your breath becomes a soothing companion, allow the echoes of Martha Jean Everett's story to settle. Consider the profound fragility of innocence, the unsettling, almost contagious power of dark inspiration, and the lingering, icy chill of unresolved mysteries that continue to haunt the corners of our history, whispering of secrets kept and horrors unleashed. May the contemplation of her vanishing and the silent, tormenting questions it left behind for a small town forever changed bring you a sense of quiet reflection and a deeper, albeit somber, understanding of the hidden depths of human nature, guiding you gently towards a peaceful and restorative rest.